So I think you would agree that the documentary is quite impactful in many different ways. And we as a United Way of Greater Waterbury are really grateful for the great work of Production for Change to bring to light these voices, these stories of not just some of the most vulnerable in our community, but also some amazing partners that do this work day in and day out, some of which are here. Because of the great work that you do, and because of our strategic investments as United Way, we at the United Way are proud to present you guys with a check today. And this check will be utilized to continue to tell more stories and more voices for folks in our 10-town community. Wow. So we're proud to partner with you and know that we greatly appreciate the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you so much.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was a nice little surprise for them. They didn't know that it was happening.
No.
But a great honor for us and fun to be able to do it, to highlight and show the great work that they're doing and being supportive. My name is Jered Bruzas. I serve the United Way of Greater Waterbury as the Chief Impact Officer. And with us today, we've got some really incredible folks here to share about the documentary and from folks with lived experience and providers. So to our far right, Tom Mazzarella, who is the Executive for Productions for Change. We have Cyndi Sims, who is the co-executive producer and jack of all trades. And to my immediate right here, John Owens, who is a case manager at St. Vincent Paul Mission of Waterbury and a former consumer of homeless services with lived experience with homelessness in Waterbury. So welcome.
Thank you, Jered.
So we'll start the dialogue with just some casual conversation here, but we really want to make this an engaging process. These folks have quite the vast experience with this work and quite a bit of knowledge. So we do expect some and hope for some interaction with the guests in the audience to share some thoughts or questions or posing ideas or any eyebrows that got lifted. I know there's a couple things that when the first time I saw it made me pretty angry, to be honest with you. So
yeah, there's a few things.
There's a couple things, yeah. So
that was the whole point, though.
Good,
Like
right?
It really was, to make you think, and hopefully you walk away from this going, oh, I never thought about it that way, or that was ridiculous, or oh my gosh, what a great idea. That was kind of the whole point of this.
Yeah. Why'd you do it?
Because I could. I've been producing videos for over 40 years. I've done a few documentaries, one which won a Emmy back in the 1980s. If you want to go out there and look for it, it's about puppetry, American puppetry. But we, my company, Mazzarella, we've been producing educational content for years. And I started the nonprofit several years ago, thinking that I got to help more nonprofits, and I just don't have enough time to do it or the resources. So I started it and started very small. Started doing a couple more nonprofit jobs. We did one for St. Vincent DePaul here in Bristol, which is my hometown. And after we did that, we created 18 short clips that we were going to put out to social media, and we were really excited about it. And once they got out there, I thought, oh my Lord, it's not even making an impact. There's not enough out there. So I figured if I can get more agencies involved with this project, it would make it get bigger, and it did. And so I reached out to United Way here in Waterbury. They were like the catalyst for this thing. And then some people in New Britain and then Southington. And with all their help, we were able to identify the different people that were homeless and the different agencies that were able to help us create this documentary. So I started, and the reason why I started, and people always ask me this question, is because I can. God gave me the talent of producing, and that's what I want to do.
Cyndi, you went along through this journey and you were knee-deep in asking all the great questions and prodding and probing and trying to pick the brains of many different folks. Out of all the individuals that you interviewed, who do you remember the most?
Ooh, that's a tough question. Because as you can see, we talked to a lot of people, and honestly, some of the people we interviewed didn't end up making the movie. That's how many we talked to. Well, obviously Kenny King, and not in the after, when we learned that he had passed away. Just talking to him, I think you might have been our first interview, Jered. So you obviously too, because you sort of opened our eyes to a lot of things, like a lot of avenues that we knew we wanted to go down. But Kenny King was like somebody that I could have been neighbors with, like just a super nice, engaging, willing to talk about everything. And I think most of the people we interviewed, I always say, if there's anything you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer it. I'm going to ask you some questions. It ended up being a really good dialogue most of the time. And no one ever really said to me, I don't want to go there, I don't want to talk about it. Another one that was really, I thought, like impactful to me, sorry, is that my voice? Was Paula. You saw Paula on here. Paula was the one who said, I have no hope at the end. She said, I'm not hopeful, I'm not looking forward. Okay, that's probably better. I'm not looking forward to the future. She was amazing to talk to and very insightful. I mean, she shared with me, and I'm sure like it's been on some of the mini docs too, she was a shopaholic. And that's what put her into homelessness. She spent herself into not being able to keep an apartment. I mean, that was, who thinks of that? When you think of a cause of homelessness, you don't think of that. But she was very open about it, and we saw her at the premiere in March in Bristol of this, and she was with her mom, and she has a house now, and she looked amazing. Her hair was all done, and she had on a cute little outfit. And it was so uplifting to see somebody who got from, being completely hopeless to somebody who was excited about the future and seeing things in a different way. And I just loved her.
And I'd just add to that, she did write on our Facebook page that if it wasn't for Cyndi, she doesn't think that she would have ever made it back to that. So it was really nice to hear her say that.
That's nice, thanks. Yeah, she was amazing.
So Cyndi, you alluded to Kenny as somebody who could be our neighbor. And John, your story is quite similar because you could really be everybody's neighbor too. And I remember, well, it's been probably almost 7 years ago since we've known each other, but your story is quite fascinating. It can be just like any one of us. And I always often tell folks, the difference between people that are homeless and us is nothing. Right, except for the fact that they're housed.
I agree, right? And there's a stipulation that's put out there about homelessness. They made people, when it was time for me to give up my apartment for not having enough funding, trying to figure out where to go, and you try your friends, you try your relatives, and most of them are not open to having you come stay in their house. So although you might have gotten together for Thanksgiving and Christmas over the years, that's just Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day. They do not want you in the house. So I said, what's the worst thing that can happen? At least moving into the shelter, I have a place to stay, a warm place. I get fed every night, and I get breakfast in the morning, and I was still working part-time at the time, so I was able to go to do my part-time job. And after maybe 2 to 3 nights of being in the shelter, the misconception that goes on about a shelter is truly not correct. So it turns out it's much better for someone to go into a shelter and have a roof over their head, have a place to shower, a place to eat, and then you take that saying one day at a time, and you one day at a time, step by step, and you slowly build yourself back up to where you go, and you can apply to an apartment in like St. Vincent de Paul, helped me with the security deposit and some of the first month's rent. So it was a way out, and you just know that work is not a bad thing, and work is something that does keep you in your housing. So from my experience, I just felt that when you tell people you were going into the shelter, they're telling you, oh, a lot of bad things happened there. It's not true at all. A lot of good things happened there. And now I'm a case counselor at St. Vincent de Paul. And I went through the Maturity Works training program. That was an elderly organization. They got people 55 and older back into the working world. And I started off with the Department of Labor. I worked a year in their career center, working with people applying for unemployment and all the types of things like that, helping people trying to find jobs and everything like that. After that year, went into Maturity Works office, and I helped the inner city people there in trying to get into the CSEP, which it's called the CSEP training program, because of being 55 and older. And I helped a lot of people get into the program and help people get into doing some computer training and stuff like that a lot of the people in the inner city lack. And after the pandemic hit, they said it was time to go back into a host place, and I was asked to go to St. Vincent de Paul shelter. So I said, by all means, I would go. And it's true, it's really turned out to be a really good fit. So maybe in the long run, it was something that was meant to be.
Yeah, it's amazing. Your story is really full circle, right? From going from former consumer and a guest and resident of St. Vincent de Paul, but now housing people at St. Vincent de Paul.
Yes.
I want to just clap for you, John, because that's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. And I appreciated your documentary. It was very well made, and it really shows what homelessness is. So you did an excellent job. Yep.
So we'd like to spend some time here, just because we have short time, and if we don't leave here by a certain time, another movie will be starting. I was told. It's true, actually. So we've got a few minutes left, and we'd like to open up for some conversation. So if you wouldn't mind just speaking loudly and sharing your questions or comments.
I'm curious if this is available for other organizations to use. I've worked with the Cheshire Community YMCA, and I'm part of a group that is actually just starting up a nonprofit to support homelessness. And this gave me a lot of different ideas to think about, and I would like to share it with the board. And I wasn't sure if that's available.
Yes, it is available. Currently, we have 2 other organizations that are going to be using it as a fundraiser for themselves. So we could talk about that later. That would be great. Thank you.
And if you're an individual and you want to see this, it's actually on the website productionsforchange.org, and there are like 100,000 business cards that link to that out in the lobby. So if you stop by the table, you can get that there too.
Yes, my name's Ron Webb. I'm with Rotary, and in the state of Connecticut, we have 2 districts with about 100 Rotary clubs and about 3,500 Rotarians. And I'd like to get the message out to all those clubs. I think it's worthwhile. I'm also involved with foundation and grants, and one of the biggest issues when we do grants is to do the community assessment first. And I think you guys have done an awesome job of doing a community assessment within Connecticut, so I applaud you for that. The second part is that when you're looking at a solution, you want to make sure you focus on the root problem rather than symptoms, and this helps very much in doing that, and also creating some type of sustainable environment. The worst thing is to just have people blindly go in and tell people how they're going to fix a problem without understanding it. But as I watched the video, I saw that a lot of the people have a support pet, and that support pet is both a blessing and it can also be a detriment in the fact that it prevents them from working. So in my mind's eye, I could see creating an environment for there to be a daycare for pets while these people are able to go out to a job as part of the transition in. But there's so many pieces to this that all fit together nicely that I will go to the website, and I will be reaching out, and perhaps we have you speak at some of the Rotary events over the district. And I think that we can play an active part in helping out.
That'd be great. We'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I think it's important also to highlight that, to be able to do this and to do it well, it takes resources in order to do it. And part of that for us locally here at United Way is to invest in those resources. But as folks continue to view and are impacted by this documentary, realizing that it needs sustainable resources to continue the work, and as they continue to bring other voices in different communities, hopefully this is a catalyst to drive resources to the organization, but to really make sure that there's real sustainable changes here locally in the homeless response system.
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing. So you saw the documentary here. If you go to our website, we have a docu-series. It's a series of videos, and a lot of those stories are way different than these. And I believe there's 14 up there at this point. And that's what we're continuing to produce. And that's what this is going to be able to help us do, is continue with more stories and more education to educate the public. So your help will be very, very well welcomed to us. But I just want to make sure when you go outside, my business card's there. Another card is out there that has a QR code on there. It takes you right to our website. And if you can, when you get home, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to that, because the more that subscribe, I'm telling you, it's catching on like fire. We get at least 40 people a week. Keep on. This is since December, and just keeps on going and growing and growing. So it's really great. Thank you.
And I just wanted to thank you for bringing up the part about pets, because that was something that was really surprising to me, how many people have pets who are homeless. And I mean, you're right, that brings on a whole other layer. But how many of you guys are pet owners here? Dogs, cats, snakes, whatever, right? You know what a pet means. You know how important that is. So for these people, sometimes their cat, especially cats, people have cats, but dogs too, but that's their world. That's who they have. And if we could do something that could help them manage that, that was actually one of my first thoughts when I started meeting people. I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody has a dog or a cat. That could change a lot of people's lives. So I like your thinking on that.
To piggyback off that, sometimes we don't think of necessarily the implications of that. So there was some guidance from the state to ensure that folks were allowed to bring their animals into shelter. Well, as a former shelter operator, the largest in the state of Connecticut, we almost had Noah's Ark on our hands. And the implications of what that looked like, and literally cats and dogs trying to fight and people bringing in multiple animals, we needed a place to keep people, not just the animals. And so when you had animals that are unvaccinated and not tame, and you've got all kinds of things going on, it sounds nice and it's well intended, but it's not always well thought out. And so sometimes, as some of the folks here on the documentary were speaking, sometimes bureaucracy makes things worse. And so I would agree, as a dog owner of Lily, who did not sleep in my bed last night. It's hard, right? And especially for those that's their only source of comfort, like Kenny in the video. But at the same time, for those of you who suffer with allergies, and you're next to a dog or a cat in a shelter, whose rights are trumped?
And by the way, at the bottom of Kenny's, at the bottom of the very end of the movie, Sophie is thrilled living with Matt. Sophie immediately bonded with Matt and his wife. Sophie is living the best life any dog could ever live. So that made me really happy.
So we have time for another question or comment.
I do want to say I appreciate you not sanitizing the information or the lived experiences. I think that's really, really important, and people might have different perspectives or different views, but it's really, really important to hear what people are experiencing, and that will only help us drive better services. And so I just wanted to put that out there and to appreciate you.
Thank you, Kristen. That was something that Cyndi and I, when we started this thing, said we cannot take sides. We need to hear everybody's opinion about things. And we fought really hard because there were things that we didn't agree with either. As Jered mentioned, there's things that in there that irked you and made you feel uncomfortable. But we wanted to tell the story, and that's what we did. And you're not the only one, Kristen, that has brought that up to us. That night that we had the actual the premiere, we had several people come up to us and say, and especially reporters, like, "What? You didn't take a side?" No, I didn't take a side. It's
Because there are too many sides. You couldn't take one. And honestly, everything you think you know, when you talk to this person, they affirm exactly what you believe. Then you talk to this person and you're like, wait a minute, that's not what I believe. But then you come around, you go, oh, I see what you're saying, though. I kind of get it. Every single person we talked to on here shaped at least my perspective in some way, so that I came away from this project a very different person than I was when we started 2 years ago.
So as I often say, one quick one.
I just wanted to know, has this been brought to any part of legislation? This is such a wonderful piece, and honestly, every emotion as I was watching this was really pulled away. And just like you said, you can't take sides, and the need is just so great, and it's so vast. And I just wanted to know, like, have the governor seen it? Have other mayors besides Bristol seen it? Have, you know?
That's a great question, and I'm glad that you asked about government seeing this and legislators. We have offered it. We asked so many people to participate in it, and they just haven't taken us up on it yet. So I think your word of mouth could go a lot further than me going, you know, I'm the co-producer of it. Tell your legislators, tell people they need to see this, tell them to get in touch with us, because I do think once on a state level, we get the conversation going even further, it's going to go further and it's going to do more. So yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Every single person in our state legislature should see this. Our state reps should see it. Our state senators should see it. Our US senators should see it. They've got their own things going on that this might be helpful. Our governor should absolutely sit down for 75 minutes with a cocktail or whatever and watch this. It's so important.
Thank you. So right now, and part of the reason why there aren't some providers in the room, there's well over 1,000 people that are in Hartford that are getting some really great training through our friends from Connecticut Coalition to End Homelessness in their annual training institute. There's been lots of advocacy that's happened from the homeless response system throughout the state of Connecticut. And the majority of the requests that the homeless response system has asked during this past legislative session had gone unanswered. So there are many people that are fighting for supports and resources, unfortunately. In a so-called progressive state like ours in Connecticut, those are falling on deaf ears. So know that folks are still fighting and advocating. So really want to thank you guys all for the great work that you guys do. The impact that you guys have is powerful here, and clearly we need to continue to share the stories and folks getting access to the documentary so folks can hear and see really what's happening. And we are as a United Way, are really proud to be able to provide offerings like this, as well as many others, through the resources that we have, whether there are our webinars, which we're providing to the homeless response system and others in the city of Waterbury throughout the summer, our lunch and learn opportunities, our tours. Some of these things that you've seen in person were some of the footage that we had gone when you went on tour with us. So for those, and I see a number of people that have been on tour to see some of these places here, and providers that receive some of the guests for tours, join us. If there's something that sparked your interest here, we do them through each of our different impact areas: basic needs, financial stability, education. But join us. There's many different ways to get involved and engaged. and we'd be proud to take you around and meet and greet some consumers, as well as see some of the great community partners that are doing this day in and day out. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yes, and just one last shout out to Greater Waterbury Chamber, because it's been, United Way, I'm sorry.
That's right, good friends.
We talked to so many organizations, though. You guys have been rock stars and lifesavers, and a lot of this came about because of you, so thank you. Thank you guys so much for everything.